Hi everyone, my name is Sanella and this is a training on Report Designer tool. A few things about me: I like to do dangerous sports and I have about 8 years of experience working with Eclipse, BIRT, Report Designer tool, working for different companies, and also I was a teacher for about 6 years teaching high schoolers. This is our agenda and let's get started. First, you need to download Eclipse from this link. As you can see here where it says all-in-one, prerequisites 1.7, that is not correct. You actually need 8. So all-in-one, download now and then choose your system. This is the correct link that you can link on JDK8 that will work for you. If you don't do this correctly, you will get errors like this. After you have done all that, you're gonna get a picture like this once you click on Eclipse executable, and then you can choose your workspace where you want to create your projects and reports. Now, here are some major windows that you're going to see in the Report Designer tool. You're going to see Data Explorer, Project Explorer, Resource Explorer. That's where you can put your libraries, jar files, anything. Properties, where you are going to make text bold, deal with any kind of formatting. Palette, where you're going to drag the table, label, text, anything. We are going to go more in depth into these, but you should be familiar with all of these windows. If by any chance you click out of any of those windows, you can go to Windows, Perspective, Open Perspective, and then make sure you're in Report Design and Show View. Then if you're missing, for example, Navigator, where you can see your reports and projects, you're gonna click on this and show it. If you are missing Property Editor, where you can do any formatting changes, you will again go Windows, Perspective, Open Perspective, Report Design. Make sure you're in Report Design and then Show View. Now, can we build a report in 15 minutes? Let's see. Okay, let's build a report in 15 minutes. First, we're going to do a new project. Under Business Intelligence and Reporting Tool, we're going to pick Report Project. Next, we're going to call it Demo 1. As you can see, I have already experimented with this. So, okay, under that Demo 1, we're going to create a report. We can just call it New Report Demo 1. Next, it's going to be blank report and finish. Next thing, we're going to add a data source from Classic Models. Next, finish. That's it. Now, data source, new data set. Next, from Classic Models, we're going to pick from customers 4 columns. As you can tell, if you do it this way, then it just gives you commas and everything else you need. So that's our query. Finish. We can preview the results. Alright, looks good. Okay. Then from under palette, we're going to pick a table with 3 columns. And we are going to drag each of these columns where we want them to be. Under detail. Then we're going to put the phone here and contact first name and last name here. This is just to show you that it can be done many ways. Next, we're going to sort everything by customer name. So select the whole table under sorting, add customer name, ascending. Okay. Next, we're going to add a style for the header. So we're going to select the header, element, style, new style. Font, let's make it a little bigger because it's our header. And then we want to do it, we want to add a background. I'm going to pick this gray color, but under here you can pick anything you want, any shade you want. Under here, under font, you can pick normal, but you can pick bold too. Alright, so we're going to keep it this way. So if you do it this way, now you have created a style called new style that you can apply anywhere else you want. Instead of going through click bold, click this background, you can just say give me this new style. And that's going to do it. We're not going to do this for the detail. Alright, now we're going to change these titles. Okay, the last element that we're going to add is a title. We're going to drag a text from palette. And here's HTML code that I have already wrote. And so you can decide in your title if you want something different style. Alright, and the final step is run the report in Web Viewer. So this is how our report looks like. We have a title for internal use only, customer list. This is sorted, and the header looks this way. We can change all this. We can add borders, anything. So we have built our first report upon which we're going to be building many other reports, many other features. Now let's quickly review. So we used classic model database. We created a new project, new report, built the data source, built the data set. Remember, we dragged those 4 columns from customer. We laid out the report. There were 3 columns. We sorted the data by customer name. We formatted the report. We added a style, and we created a report title, HTML. Okay, so I'm going to guide you through all of these steps, show you, and then you're going to do it yourself. So you're going to go under Project, Report Project. Next, you're going to choose Blank Report. You're going to add a new report within that project. See, My Reports is the project. Customer, in this case, is the report name. You can give it any name you want. You're going to use Classic Model, INC. Database, you're going to drag these 4 columns. If you do that, it's going to give you commas and everything from customers, and then you can preview the results. Then you're going to add a table with, then you're going to add a table. Within that table, you're going to drag columns. Going to change the titles. You're going to sort it, select the whole table and sort it by customer name. Then you're going to apply the style to the header. Style, element, new style, style. And then you're going to add this HTML. I'm going to give you this to add as your HTML title. Then you're going to preview the report. And now we have a little quiz after you have done this. So now I hope you have finished the report. You have learned how to use some of these different elements like Data Explorer, Palette, Navigator, Property Editor, Problems. I want you to match these. The next thing I want to talk about that is very important is planning your report. You should always plan a report on paper before you begin to create it in Eclipse and BIRT Report Designer. You should have specifications that describe the requirements and a mock-up of your report. You should ask yourself, what is the purpose of this report? Who is going to read the report? What information should appear on the report, and where is it coming from? Does any of the data need to be calculated? How will the data be calculated? Do I want to enable the report users to specify what data to display? So it is very important that you ask yourself, which is more important, viewing online or printing the report? Sometimes even ask yourself, will the report be viewed by users in multiple countries? Very important to ask, what is the overall layout for the report data? Can all data appear in a single section, or does the data need to be presented in multiple sections? Do you need to organize information into groups? If yes, how? How do you want to sort information? Do you need to summarize data? And also, how are you going to do that? Do you need to highlight information? Do you need to display information in page headers and footers? Are there some corporate standards that you need to follow? Are there online style sheets that you can use? Are there report templates that you can use? Can you use report library components? Can you store common report elements in a library which all reports can use? Can you create report templates to define a basic report structure on which new reports can be used? Finally, it's really important to know, how is this report going to be deployed? How it will be distributed to the users? Will the report be deployed from an application? Will the report be sent through an email? If it's through application, address these questions. How will the report integrate with the application? Will the users need a secure login to access the report? Will users view a generated report, or will users generate the report to view it with real-time data? Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is accessing and binding data and connecting to your data source. To access data for a BIRT report, you use a BIRT data source, and there can be many, as you can see: Cassandra scripted, classic models, Excel data, flat file, Hive, JDBC. That's the one I've mostly used in my experience. Mongo, POJO data source, that's the lesson that we are going to have on using the POJO data source, scripted, web services, XML data source. A BIRT data source is an object that contains the information to connect to the database, text file, XML file, or web service. You can create as many data sources as necessary for a report, and the data sources can be of different types. For example, a report can use data from a database and data from a flat file repository. Okay, now we are going to create a POJO data source. So let's just create another project. This is just to explain how POJO works. Alright, we're going to create another project, call it POJO. Within this POJO project, we're going to create a report. And it can just be called report blank finish. Now, in Data Explorer, we can see we're going to add a data source, new data source, and we will select POJO data source. Next, we're going to add 4 jars. Okay, now we are going to select all these jars. and we will test the connection. Okay, now we're gonna click finish. There is one thing that I missed. I missed to show you just being successful. So let me go back to it. So you see here when you say test connection, ping succeeded. And also make sure you actually have to check this. And okay, the next thing we're going to do is do a new data set. POJO data source. Next. We are going to find here this one, the alterator. Next, we need a class name. The class we need is this one, row needs change. Then we're going to move these two. Okay, and this one. Okay, and finish. We can preview. Right now we don't have anything because we need to create a parameter. So let's do that. We're going to create a new parameter. So it's going to be called JSON data, and I added this as a default value right here. Okay, and then we need to create a dataset parameter. So under parameters, new. It's also going to be JSON data, and we are going to link it to the other one. Yes, it's a string. Okay. Now if we preview results, we have Jane and John. Okay. Now we can add a table, or we can just drag these like that. Select all. We can format them any way we want, but I'll just run the report so you can see how the parameter section will come up, and you just have to say OK. So when this shows up, you just say OK, and then you get this. Of course, you can format, you can put header, footer, whatever else you need. So that's about creating a POJO data source. Okay, so now I just want to review with you what we did with POJO data source. Mapping between Tableau fields and properties in Java class have to match. Therefore, fields in Tableau should not be having any space or special characters. The created jar files will be acting as input to the report, which will be created. So this is why we went through all of this and used this one, row needs change. So you can see what actually went behind this. Then we drag these 4 jars, ping succeeded, created a new report, simple POJO. This is how you can call it. You can call it anything you want. Then we created a data set after creating a data source. And we picked this one, datalator. I don't know how it's pronounced. Row needs change. Also, we picked those two. And I had a default value here, JSON data. And then we created a dataset parameter, and we linked those two. That was a string, and then we dragged a table and ran the report, and that's it. Okay, now I want to talk to you about binding data. Dataset or datasets you create return the data that you want to use in a report. Before you can display them, you must first create the necessary data bindings. Like when I was demonstrating the first tutorial, to display data in a report, you simply drag dataset from the Data Explorer. Remember that window, you drag that to a table, and each time you insert a data set field, BIRT creates a data binding automatically. So when you go here to property table under bindings, you can see all these that were automatically created, but you can also later on create them by saying add, create new bindings. This data binding called a column binding defines the expression that specifies what data to display. The column binding also defines a name that report elements use to access data. It comes with a name. So basically, if you want to display anything in a report, you have to have a binding. And bindings are, see, this is when you're creating binding yourself. You click on Add Bindings, and then on Function, you decide how you want to call that binding. And those are dynamic updates of calculated data. So you use this expression builder. Now, one of the main reasons for errors in the report are bindings. I cannot stress that enough, that if something goes wrong with your report, it's probably binding. Check that first. Selecting a data element and editing its column binding information does not affect only the selected data element. That's why Report Designer asks you, do you want to change it in a column bindings expression or data type to be processed? So let me demonstrate this. Like if you are dragging this first name here, all right, but you want to change this first name to 2, for example. Because it's using the same data, like first name, like it did in the first bindings, it's gonna ask you this, create new data binding. This data binding is used by more than one report item and cell. You want to create a new expression for this report item. Click Yes to create a new data binding. Click No to change the data binding for all the places. Okay, we can say yes, and new data binding, whatever you want to call it. I'll just enter here 1. So if you check here, now you have 3 data bindings, and this one can be different than this one, but it has to have a new name. Okay? Report elements can access data only through column binding. Here's one example where I was doing the aggregation, and every time I do an aggregation, I cannot just call this the same name. So this is called aggregation, and it calculates sales for group. Okay, this is aggregation 1. This is calculating sales based on table, so it has to be a different kind of. You cannot have the same name for column bindings. So every time I was calculating some of these, I had to change the name. So that's, and so when you look at the bindings here for the whole table, you are gonna have so many. Like here, see, some of these are an aggregate function sum. This is all the bindings. And if any of these is not working, your report is going to break. So that's why a lot of times when things don't work, if you try here none and then reset the bindings, that can help. Now I want to show you a few other things about this report. This report was built off of Excel spreadsheet. So that's another thing that you can do. But in the output here, we click on the data set, you can see all the columns that you can select, output columns. Here you can change the type. Let me make this bigger. Preview the results. Computed columns, that also is something that you will probably use. So let's say we are going to calculate sales and profit. This is just to show you how this works. So computed columns, we can say new. I'll just call it A just for the sake of the demonstration. I'm going to say dot times sales times profit if you wanted to know, okay, what were the sales plus the profit we made. Okay, so now if we go to preview results, okay, blob type, of course, we have to change that to integer. Okay, so we will just change data type here to integer, or it can be float. Alright, now we can see here A, right? So these are a few other things that you should keep in mind about. Output columns, I showed you that if you are calculating computed field and data set. Also, I need to show you how you can join data sets. Okay, so let's say you add another data set. Also from classic models, but it's going to be from orders. And we're going to just do customer number, something else, order number. Okay, finish. Preview. Fine, so now we have two data sets. How can we join these? So we can do new joint data set. And then you can pick data set 1 and 2, and we can join them on customer number. You can do inner, left, right, full outer joint. To keep in mind is that you can limit the amount of rows to display. Sometimes you have these huge data and it takes forever it would just slow down your system, so you can just limit that number. Let me show you how to set that. Preferences, and under Dataset Editor you can just set, you can see that will work. Remember, we get just 10. Okay, I also want to show you how to change the number of rows that appear in preview results. So you can see here Dataset Editor and Preferences under Windows, number of rows to display 500. So you can set that to less if you have a lot of data. Let me show you how that works. So if you go here and you say preview results, you have lots of results. Sometimes you can have, okay, well now you have just 256, but sometimes you can have a lot more that can slow down you working on the report. So you can go to Windows Preferences, under Dataset Editor, under Report Design, Dataset Editor, you can put here, I'll just put 10 for the sake of example. Apply. And now, if you click Preview Results, you're just going to have 10. If you just want to see if you can quickly work to just know what's going on, so you don't have to be seeing all the results. Okay, you now take a break for 15 minutes. Now let's talk about layout, display, and formatting. Question, what do you think these are? Okay, label, so that is a static element. Text, that can be dynamic, HTML. Dynamic text, it can also be the one that you get from the dataset field. And data, you usually get that from the dataset field. So the answers are static, like you can see, displays a static label text. So you know what to drag. Text, when you're dragging from the palette, you can do HTML formatting. Dynamic text. Let me show you that. Okay, so you remember we used here just text, HTML text. So label is when it's static. If you drag the label, then you are just adding like a title. But we had more than that in our report. Okay, so let's say we want to drag dynamic text. What happens? So you don't get that HTML, you get something like this. So we can do date, for example. Okay. So if we preview that, we would get this. We will get a date and customer list for internal use only. That's from the text. So that's dynamic text. And data displays the computed values. So let me show you that too. So we could move here, data. So then it would pop up, like I said, everything you're dropping as data has to have binding. All right? Okay, now what do you think the rest of these are? So image, of course, that can be any image web browser can support. And we are going to do, I'm going to show you how to embed images. Grid, remember when I talked about how you need to plan your report? That means you might have many sections, many report elements in it's a static table, but you can put many tables into one grid. Now, table organizes data from a data set in a dynamic table, while list organizes data from a data set in a variety of formats. For example, a letter. You see here, section displays 2 lists. You can be writing a letter to and then change just a name and the same letter. So if it's not rows and columns, then you're going to choose list. And of course, I'll show you how to do that too. Chart displays data in chart types. You can see here. And crosstab summarizes the data. So it aggregates data in a row and column matrix. So here are the answers. Like you can see, multiple reports elements in a static table. And I can show you all this in the report. So if you look at the palette here, you can see grid. So inside of that grid, let's say this is a grid, we can put table. This is all static, but we can insert more than one table. We can insert table here. Let's say it's coming from a different data set. You would need this when you are designing a report. If you try to do list, you can insert a list here. Insert list. List looks like that, header, detail, footer. Then you have image. Right here, let's say we are inserting here, it's fine. You have URI, image, shared resources, embedded image, dynamic image, and we'll go through that in details later. Then you have a chart right here, and we will have a hands-on exercise on chart. There are many different kinds of charts. We're not going to do that now. Crosstab right here, crosstab is fun. Where you have rows, summary, you have to build a data cube, and also we will have a hands-on on that. Right now we're just doing a little overview. The most important thing to start, I would say the most important thing to start with when you have a complex report is grid. So you can, inside of that grid, you can put many different things like I was just showing you. Okay, one other thing that you need to keep in mind is that you're going to have header, detail, and footer in each table. And as many rows are in the table in your preview result, that's what's going to be in your detail. Header, you can put groups there. You can have summaries. You can make header repeat. And footer is just something that appears once at the end of the table. As I was saying, list you can use to write letters to different people. It's anything that is to display dynamic data in any format that is not rows and columns. And that's how it looks. And I already showed you that. Now, inserting a data set field, we have already discussed this. If you are, for example, joining two names, first and last name. So just, we were doing sales times profit. And then remember when I did new date to display a date, when I was explaining dynamic text, we already did that. And then you can compute, of course. You can say sales times profit, or here where you have strings, you would just concatenate two strings. Now let me show you how to insert an image. Let's first start with embedded image. Okay, let's go back to our report and this image. Let's say we want to embed image. We're going to add image, and I'm just going to pick anything. This is me kayaking with my munchkins. Alright, obviously that's too big, so we're going to resize this. We got 14 and 11. So I'm going to say 0.6 and 0.4. Alright, that's a small image. It's a little too small. Just do it a little bigger. So that would be embedding image in the report. And when you run this, when you run the report, you get something like this. I mean, this is just an example. So beside inserting embedded image, you can insert dynamic image from the data set. See, this is set as image, data type any. I will not show you that because I don't have right now in classic models data. There's none that is image. But I will show you how to do URL. And I think I said URI because it says here URI, but it means URL. So let me show you how to do that. So let's say we want to insert here another image. I mean, usually you would do this if you're doing a logo right here. But I'm just showing you how to do it. So insert image. And this time we're going to just, you can use URL from some website, but I'll do the same image that I used for the first illustration. So that's how I called it, just to make it simple. So when you click insert, you get that, and then again you can modify this to be certain size, like that. So the one is embedded, say embedded image, and the other one is URL image. It's coming from my computer, but it can also be from web. Alright. Now, you can display text as static. You can use it as string, or date values, dataset fields, or you can use HTML and get from JavaScript expressions like we already use date. This is one example where I use different like break, make this bold, make this part bold, don't make other parts bold. So you can use all that. When you're using dynamic data inside of one cell, you can put so many things. You can put, you can type in the expression. Like here, for example, in this report, I have put so many things into one cell. For example, this, I can say if this, then give me that, and it can go on and on. You can add so much. This means new row, make it in a new row. So eventually we're going to get to that, how to write these. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about using text. It can be auto plain HTML. Let me show you. So in this report, value, so run date, when did you run that date? So you can just you can do something like this: value format, general date, new date, date off. HTML, and this is what I was telling you about. So here's a question. Remember how we have properties binding? We didn't get to map yet, but highlights. Let's say I added a condition there in highlights. I said one of the columns or the total, if it's greater than 50,000, then this. So what do you think that would do? Easy. It would make every order that is greater than 50,000, it would make it blue and bold. All right. So let me show you how highlights work. So here we are in our new report, and I will click on this column. Here I added a highlight. Let's look at this closer. I said if its customer name equal to this, make it blue. So what would that do for us? The report will look like this. We're going to have all these blue, but the other ones won't be blue. Until we get to the other ones. Okay, let's just get to the last page. Okay, so you see, these are not. This is where you can add padding and then margin. So when you're trying to add borders, just keep in mind there are three sets that you can deal with. Content, and then padding, where you add padding, and then the margin. Let me show you that. Okay, so in our report, you have, as you can tell, like here, there are errors. It's saying if I'm to do web viewer, it's going to give me, it's going to say you're going to have errors. That's because I have not done bindings on a table or list. Like I said, every table or list, every data that you're trying to insert, you have to have bindings on the data. So once I delete those, it's going to disappear. Okay, let's do it. So this is one table. It doesn't have any bindings. The table above does. So if I deleted this table, and this table, and this list, then everything would be well. I'm not going to run the report yet. I want to show you how these borders work. So let's say you want to put borders around this data or around headers. If you click here on the table, if we stretch this a little more, you can tell there is, okay, so if you want to do the border, there's this border, that's for the content border. Usually you want to use a thin border here. So there's that. Then there is this border where you can add padding. When this happens, when you want to like give some space here, okay, it works out. But if you do too much, it's going to go back. Here, in general, you can, here, if you click on column, you can put width, whatever you want it to be, 0.5 or 0.9. Okay, but if you're just dragging it like that, it might give you those funny things. So if I wanted to add padding, then I click here and I say padding, and I don't know, we can just do 20. So it moves it there. That's one border. And then you have another one, which is, okay, so here you have one border, and if you click here, it's another. I intentionally made this bold so you can see that there's difference. Like here, look, that's that inside border. But then there's one more border, which is thin border. So if I made this big, then all of this gets big. You see, there are 3 levels. Okay? So when you're doing borders, keep this in mind. Now, sorting and grouping, we're going to do a hands-on on sorting and grouping, and then you will do a report. We're going to build on the report that we've already done. Here, just to explain a little bit, you click on the table and you say insert group above, and then you can add as many groups as you want. You can do interval and sorting on top of it. So let's build a report with sorting and grouping. So we are going to do this. We are going to group. We're going to use classic models for our data, and we're going to build a simple report that lists customers in alphabetical order. We're going to build on the first report that we started with, and we're going to organize customers into credit limits, groups such as 50,000, 100,000, etc. You'll see. All right, let's do this. So this is our report. This is the things I was messing with to explain to you how to do certain things. So now we want to group this report. We're going to, based on credit limit. So we're going to add credit limit right here. Right here. Comma. That's it. All right, that's the first thing. Second thing, you know what, this data set, we don't need that. That's just, I was explaining to you what to do if you want to join data sets. We just need this one. Now, and this date, we don't need this either. Okay, so now we are going to add to the left, we're going to add a column, credit limit. And you already know how you do that. You drag. That's it. Once you do that, you get your binding, right? You don't see it right now, but if you click on the table, you can see it. Okay, so we have that. Okay, now we are going to add group. So you click on the table and you say insert group above. It's going to be based on the credit limit. We're going to add interval 50,000. All right, and then just click OK. All right, so this is our group. Let's make this bold so we can see what's going on. All right, so if you click bold here, let's see how this looks like. Okay, we got this 0. Let's click here. So you got grouped. We said interval is 50,000. So then it starts with this, then this. All right, now we don't want to see all this here. We want to fix this up a little bit. Also, this was just when I was showing you highlighting. So let's fix all that. All right, inside of this, we are going to display credit and credit ranges. And this is something that I've already written ahead of time. Okay. Click OK. Yes. New binding, credit, limit. So basically what I did, I think the best way to understand what the code here was doing. Okay, remember this code? It was just displaying credit ranges. So here you have 50,000 and then it's going to be 100,000. See, starts 100,000. So we don't have like this number. We want to have something like that. Now the next thing we want to do is display number of customers in each group. So like this one, I want to know how many of these are there. Okay, so how far does this go? Etc. In each of these groups, I want to know how many customers are there. Okay, let's do that. How we are going to do this. So customer name, we're going to insert an aggregation, and it's going to be count. So what are we counting? How many customer names are? And that's going to be based on this first group that we've created. Okay, so when we do that, what do we get? We get so many, but you see, this is a problem. This keeps repeating. Now we have to figure out why are these repeating. See, it's the same thing. We don't need that. We just need one. So let's fix that. Okay, I know why this is so, because I had another data set, and so I was joining it even though I deleted it. So I'm gonna go back to the report where I have not done that. Okay, I have realized that I have closed everything. So we're gonna have to start from the beginning, but I'm gonna be really quick. I'm not gonna be explaining, and this will be a good review for you. Every time you're creating a report, you're gonna create a project first, right? It's gonna ask you do you want to open the report designer perspective? Of course you do. And then we're gonna do new report. Then you go to Data Explorer. You do new data source, classic. Next. Finish. Data set. This can just tell you that a report can be done in 5 minutes. From the customers, we are gonna get, on top of those 4 columns that we had, customer name, last name, first name, and a phone, we are also gonna get one more column, credit limit. So this is all. The reason before why things were repeating is because I was adding another table and joining them, because I was trying to show you that joins work. So we have output columns. Okay. And here's all we need. And then we are not going to worry about the header right now. What we want to learn is how to do groups. So we're going to insert a group, and it's going to be based on credit limit. Interval will be 50,000. Okay. Wanted to make this bold. And then we're going to use this JavaScript to display everything in ranges. Stands for credit limit. Okay, also let's add sorting. We had that from before. We are sorting based on customer name. Okay, and I'm also gonna just add the title because it looks nicer. Remember how we do that? We just drag the text. I'm gonna make it HTML. Here's the text. So, like, make this in small for internal use. This is larger. All right. I think that's all. Let's run it. Okay, so what did we get? We got, see here, we made this bold, starts here, 0, and then now we have different customers, right? And it keeps going, all 0, so we have just 4 pages. And then 50,000, because we put that code, remember, a JavaScript. And then we have 100,000 and 200,000. Now we want to calculate how many customer names are in each group. So let's do that. In the footer, we're going to do insert, aggregation, count, and it's going to be, I'm sorry, all we have to do is customer name, and it's going to be based on the group that we've already created. All right, that's it. Now let's run it. Okay, what did we get? We got 37, 60, and 2, and 23. Okay, we got this right.